Good morning, children. Let's learn the next lesson. That is, it's in biography. I think you know what is a biography and autobiography. Biography will be written about a person by somebody else, whereas autobiography will be written by the same person. We have heard about many autobiographies, and about biography, that means most often the biographies which are to be studied, which is prescribed in the syllabus, mainly it will be about some famous persons. Here in this particular lesson, this is about Isaac Newton. We all know he was a scientist, and he found or discovered the theory of gravitation. We all know, and it is written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. He was a famous writer, and it is some information is given about Nathaniel Hawthorne in the beginning of the lesson, that is page number 130. Please take that. Nathaniel Hawthorne ranks among America's major authors. His novel The Scarlet Letter is considered to be a masterpiece of American literature. Hawthorne also wrote short stories, one of the collections being Twice Told Tales. Okay, and he is a famous author from American origin, and one of his famous novels is that is Scarlet Letter. Other work, the famous work is Twice Told Tales. That is a collection of short stories. Okay, let's learn this lesson. What hits us about Isaac Newton? We'll see it. When Isaac Newton was born on Christmas Day in 1642 in the small village of Woolsthorpe in England, little did his mother know what he would grow to achieve. Little did she know that he was destined to explain many matters which had been a mystery since the beginning of time. Okay, just like any person, and we do not know what you will be later in your life. Maybe a famous scientist, and many famous people will be there in this group itself. And so when he was born, his mother never thought that what he is going to do or what he will be in later life. And just like the author is telling, Nathaniel Hawthorne is telling that little did she know that he was destined to explain many matters which had been a mystery since the beginning of time. Many questions were there unanswered in science, and definitely Isaac Newton could answer in many of the fields. Isaac was left in the care of his grandmother from the time he was a small boy. She was very kind to him and sent him to school. Even when he was very young, Isaac was very skilled in mechanics. He had a set of little tools and saws of various sizes that he had fashioned by himself. With the help of these, Isaac tried to make many various objects. Okay, she was left, means in his young age, he was under the care of his grandmother. She was very kind to him and sent him to school. Even when he was very young, Isaac was very skilled in mechanics. Children, one thing is that sometimes you may not be very good at studies, but your field or your area will be different. That is why you may not be able to study these things. Okay, mechanics means the study and construction of machines. He was interested in that. When he was a young boy, he was interested in mechanics. That means he will be constructing some machines by his own. Later on, only the scientific world understood what actually his aim was. He had a set of little tools and saws of various sizes that had fashioned by himself. He himself made this equipment that is used for mechanics. With the help of these, Isaac tried to make many curious objects. The neighbors looked at the wondrous things which Isaac manufactured with great admiration, and his old grandmother was never weary of talking about her grandson. "He'll make a capital workman one of these days," she would say. "No fear but what Isaac will do well in the world." And definitely, even in his childhood, he was known to the neighbors. That is why they also looked with wonder the objects that he had shaped, manufactured, and definitely his grandmother was very proud of him. She used to say about him, he'll make a capital workman. Capital means excellent. One of these days, and she thought that he is going to be a very good excellent man or a famous man in the future. No fear, but what Isaac will do well in the world, definitely. She thought that there is no doubt that Isaac will do something in the future. It's amusing to imagine what anticipations Isaac's grandmother and others formed about the things he might make in later life. Some of them perhaps thought he would make beautiful furniture and sell it to rich people. Others thought that young Isaac would become an architect and would build splendid mansions and churches too, with the tallest steeples that had ever been seen in England. So they had a lot of expectations about this little child when he was a little child. It's amusing to imagine that what anticipations Isaac's grandmother and others formed about the things he might make in later life. What's the meaning of anticipation? Hopeful expectations. Seeing your performance, the family or the relatives or the people who are connected with you will have some expectations about you. And here the family thought that by seeing his performance or by doing these things, they understood that he is going to be someone else later, that is related to this mechanism. Some of them perhaps thought he would make beautiful furniture, and seeing his mechanical works, some of them thought that he is going to be a good furniture maker and sell it to rich people. Others thought young Isaac would become an architect and would build splendid mansions and churches. Just like an engineer, he will be shape or giving plan and making churches and other buildings with the tallest steeples. What's meaning steeples? Pointed towers rising above a church. Okay, and they thought that either he will be making beautiful buildings or churches which will be seen later in England. Some of her friends no doubt advised Isaac's grandmother to send him for training to a clockmaker, because besides his mechanical skill, the boy seemed to have a taste for mathematics, which would be very useful to him in the clock making. Okay, so some other friends suggested that he will be good in clock making. So definitely, even though he had this mechanical skill, definitely he had some taste in mathematics, so that it will be helpful for him to make clock making. Indeed, there was every reason to believe that Isaac would become a clock manufacturer. He had made a kind of clock that nobody had ever heard before. It was set to work not by wheels and weights like other clocks, but by the dropping of water. This was an object of great wonder to all the people in Woodstock. Okay, and based on these suggestions, definitely he was excelling in clock making also, and there were many reasons to think in such a way. He had made a kind of clock that nobody had ever heard of before. That means a sort of clock he made, and that was entirely different from the clocks that existed at that time. It was set to work not by wheels. In those days, the clocks were made which was working by wheels, but it was not by wheels and weights like other clocks, but by the dropping of water. Okay, so there is some difference. That was different, entirely different from the clocks that had been there in those times. This was an object of great wonder to all the people in Woolsthorpe. Besides the water clock, Isaac made a sundial. Now his grandmother was never at a loss to know the time. The water clock would tell the time in the shade and the sundial in the sunshine. So definitely he made a clock, water clock, also a sundial. What is a sundial? Meaning is given here. That is a device that indicates the time with the help of the shadow whose position. A sundial is a device that indicates time with the help of a shadow whose position changes as the sun moves across the sky. Okay, children, you have to remember about an English when our grandparents, they used to know the time by changing the shadows, the position of shadows. And here definitely he made a sundial with which the people can identify the time. So it was easy for grandmother to identify the time because already there was a water clock, at the same time sundial. Isaac had a wonderful ability to acquire knowledge by simplest means. For instance, what method do you think he used to find out the strength of the wind? You will never guess how the boy would make that unseen, inconstant and ungovernable wonder the wind tell him the measure of its strength. Yet nothing can be simpler. He jumped against the wind, and by the length of his jump, he would calculate the force of a gentle breeze, a brisk gale, or a tempest. Thus, even in his boyish sports, Isaac was continually searching out the secrets of nature. He was such a very brilliant personality. That is why he made so much wonders, and besides that, he was thinking about how to change or how to make use of this wind or some inventions that is related to wind, discovery that is related to wind. Isaac had a wonderful ability to acquire knowledge by the simplest means. These are the things that we see around us or we are always accustomed to it. Okay. For instance, what method do you think he used to find out the strength of the wind? You might have learned in physics the force or the force of the wind or the time or the speed, etc. And you see, in those days it was not even discovered. At that time he was thinking about the strength of the wind, how to find it out. You will never guess how the boy would make the unseen, inconstant and ungovernable wonder the wind tell you the measure of its strength. Okay, what is the inconstant, frequently changing? You know, the wind speed will be changing, its strength will be changing. So it's frequently changing and also impossible to govern the control. Very strong wind. Okay, and he tried to find out its strength. Yet nothing can be simpler. He jumped against the wind, and by the length of his jump, he would calculate the force of a gentle breeze. Breeze, you know, that would be the mild one, and brisk gale. What is brisk gale? A very strong wind. Also, a tempest. So each one's speed is different or strength is different, and he jumped against it and found out the speed or the strength of the wind. Thus, even in his boyish sports, Isaac was continually searching out the secrets of nature. So he tried to find by himself many secrets that was hidden in nature. Even though it was around us, no one was aware of it, but he tried to find it out. Not far from his grandmother's residence was a windmill which operated on a new plan. Isaac was in the habit of going there frequently and spending hours examining its various parts. While the mill was at rest, he examined its internal machinery. When its broad sails were set in motion by the wind, he watched the process by which the millstones were made to revolve and crush the grain that was put into the hopper. His sharp mind grasped every detail as he watched it. The Okay, so since he was a very good observer, he when he was spent the time in the residence of his grandmother, he used to go to a mill that was near him, and he observed how the function is going on. When the machinery was still, how what the things, what the machinery that is inside it, he checked it, he observed it, and when it was working, he saw the works and how it is working, how the grains are being crushed. He understood everything and he watched each and every detail. After gaining a thorough knowledge of construction, Isaac built a model of the windmill. It wasn't very large, yet every part of the mill and its machinery was complete. Its little sails were neatly made of linen and whirled around very swiftly when there was a wind. Even a puff of wind from Isaac's mouth was enough to set the sails in motion. And what was most fascinating, if a handful of wheat was put into the little hopper, it would soon be converted into snow white flour. Okay, he himself made something after seeing the function of the windmill. What did he do? He founded or he made by himself some objects. After gaining thorough knowledge of its construction, Isaac built a model of windmill. Okay, in science exhibition and all, you will see the models that is done by the children. And here, as a child, he built a windmill. That was a model windmill. It wasn't very large, yet every part of the mill and its machinery was complete, perfect. Its very little sails were neatly made of linen and whirled round very swiftly when there was a wind. You know, windmill, there are some parts. Okay, and you see, and all these will be functioning when there is a wind. Even a puff of wind from Isaac's mouth was enough to set the sails in motion. And that means when he just breathed out, then definitely it was moving, it was functioning. And what was most fascinating, if a handful of wheat was put into the little hopper, it would soon be converted into snow white flour. The children very, you see as a child how wonderful things he was making. Isaac's playmates were enchanted with this new windmill. They thought that nothing so pretty and wonderful had ever been seen in the whole world. So definitely his classmates and playmates and the people around them, they were all wondered by seeing these inventions. As Isaac grew older, it was found that he had far more important matters on his mind than the manufacture of toys like the little windmill. All day long, if left to himself, he was either absorbed in thought or engaged in some book of mathematics or natural philosophy. At night, he looked up with great curiosity at the stars and wondered whether they were worlds like our own. How great their distance was from the earth, and what power kept them in their course. As a child, he was not only limited to finding a windmill or constructing a model of windmill, but his invention or his observation was going through another things also. Okay, that means he not only made toys, but after that he concentrated in mathematics and reading books. At night he was not sleeping completely just like us, but he was observing the sky, the stars, the position of it, the movement, everything he was observing. And also he thought a lot what power is making these objects to move or to function. He was thinking deeply about all these things. Isaac's curiosity led to many discoveries. He was the first to find out the nature of light. Until then, nobody had been able to tell that what sunshine was composed of. Then there was the most famous incident of an apple falling from the tree on his head. which prompted him to discover the force of gravitation. Once he got hold of this idea, he did not rest until he had searched out all the laws by which the planets are guided through the sky. This he did as thoroughly as if he had gone up among the stars and tracked them in their orbits. As a boy, Isaac had discovered the mechanism of a windmill. As a man, he explained to his fellow human beings the complex mechanism of the universe. Okay, and his invention or the discoveries were not limited to some of the objects, but he observed everything what was there in the universe. And some of the inventions, he was the first to find out the nature of light. Okay, until then nobody had been able to tell what sunshine was composed of. Okay, then there was the famous incident of, that is, gravitational theory of gravitation, that is invented by Isaac Newton. Okay, and after that he had searched out all the laws by which the planets are guided through the sky. So different inventions he made, or observation or studies. And this he did as thoroughly as if he had gone up among the stars and tracked them in their orbits. As a boy, Isaac had discovered the mechanism of a windmill, but when he grew as a man, what did he do? He explained the complex mechanism of the universe, means how this universe is mixed with a lot of things. Isaac Newton lived to be a very old man and acquired great fame. He was made a member of parliament and received the honor of knighthood. But he cared little for these and felt no pride in the vastness of his knowledge. All that he had learned only made him feel how little he knew in comparison to what remained to be unknown. Okay, definitely, since he died in very old age, he got all the honors, like he was made member of parliament, then also he also got the honor like knighthood. But he felt that all these are nothing, because there are a lot of things to be discovered and he did not know a lot of things, and the thing that he knew was very limited compared to the things unknown. Okay. I seem to myself like a child, he would often say, playing on the seashore and picking up here and there a curious shell or a pretty pebble, while the boundless ocean of truth lies undiscovered before me. And this is a famous quotation by Isaac Newton. He tells that I'm just like a child in the universe, a child who is picking up some of the pebbles or some of the attractive objects that is there on the seashore. And the universe is like a seashore, and there are a number of things, but only one or two I have picked up. Okay, and his discoveries he compared to one or two shells or pretty pebbles compared to the numberless things or objects or valuable objects that is seen on the seashore. Okay, that is really the greatness of great people. We whatever we do or whatever we get, we like to be appreciated by all. But this man, he was very humble. Even when he was discovering a lot of things, he was not proud of it, or he was not feeling pride about it. Instead, he thought that this only very little or very few compared to the things that is not even discovered by people. Okay, this is the lesson. This is taken from this is an extract from the Stories of History and Biography by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Okay, when children learn this simple question answers and meanings that is to be learned. And only one more lesson we will study, that is a poem. That we will stop. We will wind up for the lessons for this year. Okay, children.